Hello, my friend. Welcome back to my channel. My name is Novella, and today is my midweek check-in. So I will talk about the books that I've read so far since this weekend, books that I hold, and so forth. So I'm sorry for the noise outside. They are renovating a roof next door, so yeah, it will be for at least a week or so that there will be a lot of noise, so I can't help it. What have I been reading? Perla by Carolina de Robertis. Perla is a girl who grew up in a very well-off family in Buenos Aires. And the more she grows older, the more she realizes that she has no connection with her mother whatsoever, and she adores her father. But also that in Argentina, where there was the regime since mid-75, I believe, a lot of people vanished. And the older she gets, the more she realizes that her father had something to do with that. He was a member of the regime. And in a way, she meets somebody, a strange meeting, and it will make her realize that what her father did was not justifiable. And it is graphic at some point, and it's strange, it's gothic, it is disturbing, but not in how you call it, it's not disturbing to disturb. It's disturbing because of what happened in reality. So yeah, it's a very interesting book, a very good book. It's not her best, I believe. For me, Cantoras is so far the one that I like the most. I still have to read The Invisible Mountain. That was her debut, I believe. So yeah, I gave it 4 stars, but it is interesting. Of course, it's a novel, it's fiction, it is based on true facts, but you don't have to read this book to learn more about the regime in Argentina during that time. That's no use. That's not what this book is for. It talks more about the emotions and the horrors that the people had to go through, and the family especially. Then I am reading and thoroughly enjoying Sorrowland. It's my second read. This is the second time that I'm reading this. It's by River Solomon. It is a very gothic novel, but very rich, very well written, very moody and powerful. And yeah, it's with a very powerful protagonist. Her name is Vern, or their name is Vern, and Vern grew up in a commune, and she finally could escape. But at the time that she escaped, she was pregnant, and in the woods where she hides, she gives birth to 2 children, 2 boys, I believe. And yeah, she really thrives in the woods and becomes stronger and stronger, and her body is changing in a way. And she has to go back to the commune to know what happened to her while she lived there, because every day she was giving injections and pills and stuff, and she thinks she's genetically modified or something of that genre. And yeah, this is that book. It is very, very powerful. Also, the audiobook is amazing, absolutely amazing, so well acted, and it feels completely that you can feel that the reader is thoroughly enjoying this story and throws herself in it with fire. That's all I can say about this book. It is beautiful. Very, very highly recommend. A book that I've read yesterday is Mrs. Caliban by Rachel Ingalls. This was the first time that I'm reading something of Rachel Ingalls. Mrs. Caliban is a woman who is married, of course, hence the Mrs. But her husband leaves every day the house to go to work, and she stays at home. You can feel that the marriage isn't very good, and they stay together because of a certain, I don't know, guilt, maybe, and they stay together for comfort, maybe, because he mows the lawn and she cooks. There's nothing more to their marriage than just that. And at a certain point, there's an animal that escaped a zoo or something, and it's a sort of a giant lizard, and with the body of a man, a very well muscular man, and very small ears, lizard skin, and he killed a couple of people while he was escaping, and finally he ends up in Mrs. Caliban's home. Yes, and a relationship evolves from that. Very interesting. Yeah, Mrs. Caliban by Rachel Ingalls. I enjoyed it. I really enjoyed it. I think, if you liked Bear, then you'll like this too. Then I'm also reading a book that I bought through my secondhand app by Olga Tokarczuk, the Polish Nobel Prize winner, Flights. And Flights, when I started reading, it's the account of an author, unnamed author, who travels a lot, and he writes down everything that has to do with travel. Sometimes he writes something about a word that has to do with travel, or the people that he meets, or it's all a mix of all sorts of type of texts. It reminded me a lot of the Nocilla trilogy that I've talked about on this channel a couple of times already, that now won the European Award for Literature. And it is, to me, an even better exercise than Flights, although Flights is very well done too, but Nocilla blows you away, and Flights never does that. It's more, interesting and enjoyable, but not with the force that Mallo had done, the Spanish author, I believe it is, or Portuguese. I will look it up. And then what did I bring from the library? This is a weird one. It's by César Aira. He is also Argentinian, I believe. And it's called the Literary Conference. And it's science fiction, fantasy, horror. So, the protagonist, or the main character in this book, is a scientist, and he wants to rule the world. And he made clones of a Peruvian author? Mexican. Carlos Fuentes. And he goes to the literary conference in order to kidnap Carlos Fuentes, and so he can make the clones and rule the world with all Carlos Fuentes clones. So I'm really curious. It's apparently very funny and science fiction, fantasy, gothic horror thing. So really curious. I will read this very soon. And then, have you ever heard of Curzio Malaparte? Curzio Malaparte is an Italian author, a diplomat also, and he has written Volga Rises in Europe. So, Volga Rises, this is of course also a Dutch version. Volga Rises in Europe tells the story of Malaparte himself, who was a soldier during the Second World War. You know, Italia was teaming up with the Nazis, and he fought in Finland. Where was it? Finland and oh no, he was a war correspondent. Yeah, he was in the Russian front, Ukraine, and he talks about the stuff that he experienced there as a war correspondent and the things that he has seen, and also how different the Italians saw the war when it comes to the reasoning why they were fighting. And I'm really curious. Apparently it's very well written. So in English it's Volga Rises in Europe. I'm really curious. So it was highly recommended by several Dutch authors. I want to read this, absolutely. Volga Rises in Europe by Curzio Malaparte. I'm currently reading a book by Esther Kinsky. Esther Kinsky is a German author, and it is not yet out in English, but by the sound of it, it is conquering Europe. So I would be surprised if England will not follow. So Rombo is the noise that you hear when there's an earthquake arriving. It's an Italian word, and I don't know if you have ever experienced an earthquake, but you can hear rumbling, and it's in a sort of a wave, and you can feel it coming towards you, and then the earth begins to shake. Well, rombo is the Italian word for that noise. And here she talks about big earthquake that happened in Italy in the 70s, I believe that was, 76 in Friuli. Friuli is north of Italy. A little bit more up north towards Croatia. And it was massive. A lot of people died there. This book talks about the nine people that survived the earthquake. So I really wanted to read this book because I have been to L'Aquila a couple of times after the earthquake. In L'Aquila, there was an earthquake, I believe, early 2000s. And I went there a couple of times after the earthquake. And the first time was like 5 years after. And the city was still in shambles. It was still destroyed. Only a bank was already restored immaculately. And it was, everybody got a number, and the higher the number, the quicker your house would be restored and repaired or rebuilt. And I met quite a few people. I was actually at a party where a lot of people, we studied together in L'Aquila, because L'Aquila is a university city in Abruzzo in Italy. And it was the first time in 5 years that they could come together without crying. And then I saw them again 5 years later, and their houses still weren't ready to live in. So, it is a horrible situation still. So, Rombo, the noise that an earthquake makes when it arrives and when it comes your way. I experienced one earthquake, but a very light one in Rome, and one at home, but that's a very long time ago. I was still living with my parents. So, yeah, the animals were still talking in those days. And then I have a classic written in 1969 that is now really is getting a lot of traction again, and it's by Susan Taubes or Taubes or whatever, Susan Taubes. It's called Divorcing. It is written in 1969, and I'm born in 1969. In fact, next Tuesday, it's my birthday on the 29th, and I will read this on my birthday. She married with Ezra. They have some kids together, but quickly they decide that marriage doesn't have to be exclusive. So they, meet other people, but quickly they realize that their marriage is not strong enough to be polyamorous, or how do you call it? To have an open marriage. So I'm really curious to read that one. Then I have another one by Kate Zambreno, Drifts, written in 2020. I have no idea what this is about. Kate Zambreno is the author of Screen Heroines and Green Girl. And this is an intimate portrait of reading, writing, and creative obsession. What's not to like? So the main character is a writer, an author, and she has passed her deadline way too long, and she is stuck in her novel, and by that time she gets obsessed with Rilke, Dürer, and Chantal Akerman. Chantal Akerman was a Belgian filmmaker, and she makes pictures of people in her street and stray dogs, and she wanders around in bookshops. What's not to like? No? Yeah, I like it. So the next one is by David Grossman, a doorstopper doom thingy. A light read of 700 pages. That's okay. This is about a woman whose son is in the Australian army, I believe, and she feels that something will happen to her son, and because she's terrified that the Australian army will knock on her door and tell her something horrific, she flees, and she is always on the move, and so that they can't find her, so she won't receive that horrible news. Apparently, David Grossman, his son, was also in the war in Israel, and while he was writing this book, his son died during the war. Must have been a horrible experience. So that's it. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you haven't already, and put a comment down below. Friday I will post a video that I've recorded together with Micah. We will talk about Emma, and we have a special announcement to make. So that's it. Talk to you Friday, and bye-bye. Have a lot of reading fun. Ciao.